last time did anything but stretch the event out. So we're just doing it for 4 days. And the same type of ordering situation. And we suggest that in most cases, other than the Bloomfield store, which doesn't have a last call department, the other 3 stores all do, and we're supporting the Bloomfield store through West Bloomfield. So most of these wines are in people's stores, so they can physically be seen if you were in the store or purchased that way. We would prefer you to be purchasing them online. That way you're sure you're going to get the wine, or if it's sold out, you'll know that. So you turn your orders in. We'll show you how to do that at the end of the evening. And wines can be picked up at the store that you've selected. This year, it's been a bit of a challenge with getting wine. One of the big issues right now is all of our suppliers aren't receiving new product in any kind of timely manner. So it used to take 4 weeks to get something from Europe is now 12 to 15 weeks. So everything is delayed. And if you keep backing that up, that means people who have wholesale businesses are not trying to move through things as quickly because they don't know when the replacement is coming. Another issue that I didn't realize is that China owns most all of the containers that ship all this stuff in from the Asia and Europe. And if you're having political challenges, as much of Europe, this country is, they're making it real hard to get containers. So the whole process is a little different. We weren't flooded with opportunities. We got to find some. We think that we have a really nice selection, but it's a little different than it was. You'd like to think you had a little more white wine in the middle of summer. That wasn't the case. We didn't have any real rosé until Thursday of last week when we fell into something that we think is very good. So it's just a little bit more challenging in that sense. Some of the wines that we do have are wines that would have been featured in restaurants, and we call those on-premise packages. So we're able to get some of those because on-premise is just now starting to open up, and lots of warehouses did have some of those that they'd like to have moved on because they were just sitting. Another thing, and we've got a couple of those wines, sometimes you'll have a large chain of stores that has contracts on certain items and they don't sell them all. We were fortunate to pick up a handful of really good items like that this time because they'd worked through what they wanted and we were able to get these at a very good price. So that's the basic kind of situation we've got. Most of the wines represent 40 to 50% off. They're in limited quantity. For those of you who are red wine lovers, and I'll sign up for that, the majority of the list is red wine and strong in wines from the New World as well as Italian. So I think that's enough background. It's probably ready to try a taste of wine and let Madeline start up, but we'll move on to the more important aspect than my history.
No, actually, I mean, the real takeaway from what Denny just said too is this is not a fire sale of lesser items. These are opportunities that present themselves, you know, through the supply chain and are spectacular values that we like to pass on to you. So that said, can everyone see this? Yes? Denny and Rod, can you see this?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I'd also like to add a little here is that Denny is also known as the master of what's called in the business closeouts. He has a reputation in the business, and a lot of the wholesalers understand him and what he likes and the kind of things that work. So he sees a lot of things that actually don't make it out to the other stores. So many of these items are actually special in that way, and that he has snapped them up before they just went elsewhere. So it is a special list in that regard.
Agreed.
So that said, let's go ahead and start talking about the list. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. It's one of my favorite things about my computer. Did that just get bigger? Hopefully, there we go. And we don't have the I don't have the Mulder-Bosch Cabernet Sauvignon in front of me to taste, but I want to talk about it very briefly. It's an $8 rosé. It is absolutely spectacular producer from South Africa. And I'm actually going to show you something else, because this is one of my favorite things to do, is to share, hold on, these. There we go. We're going to take a trip to South Africa. We are on the far southwestern coast. Norm can take us there on vacation one of these days. And we are inland from the Cape. We are in a growing region called Stellenbosch. But actually the grapes for all of their wines come from Stellenbosch, which is like the Napa Valley of South Africa, with the exception of this Cabernet Rosé. And those grapes come from a wider growing region, west and north of Stellenbosch. And it's referred to, as the coastal region. So this is what we call a direct press rosé, meaning it is intentionally made. It's not made so that they are pulling off juice to concentrate a red wine that they're making. They grow the grapes for this rosé intentionally. Mulder-Bosch is, a superstar in South Africa. They were started in the 1980s, very innovative. I think they were the first people to make commercially produced dry rosé. They're very famous for Sauvignon Blanc. And all of their wines are estate bottled from Stellenbosch, with the exception of the Cabernet Sauvignon Rosé that comes from a wider region. So we don't have, you'll notice, LQ, limited quantity, or VLQ, very limited quantity next to that. So Denny, we're good on production?
We have 50 cases of this.
Fantastic. So rock and
And
roll.
it tastes, it drinks well, drinks really well.
Wonderful. Then on to the whites. You've got to love a $6 Spanish glugger that's made from Macabeo, relatively neutral variety, kind of like Pinot Grigio and Chardonnay are, and Moscatel, which is the Spanish term for muscat or muscat. And this is coming from a region in on the eastern coast of Spain, Valencia, aka Valencia. And this is a winery that actually handles large production for the area around Valencia. If you go a little further south and west, there's Alicante, Utiel, Requena, and a couple of other subregions. But this is basically a very easy drinking, drink me yesterday, Spanish white that's floral, crisp, but not too tart. It's a little on the soft side, and will go down too easily. And for $6, I think that LQ will make it go away pretty quickly. The capture is interesting stuff, because this wine, Sauvignon Blanc, is their flagship wine. That's what they're most proud of. And they're located in an area that I actually had to look up today. It's an AVA called Pine Mountain Cloverdale Peak, and it's at the northeastern end of Sonoma County, and actually spills into Mendocino. And they are at a pretty staggering altitude. They start at 1,500 feet and go up to 3,000. So, which is where Mendoza starts, right, in South America. But it's pretty high for North Coast California. Denny, did you taste this one? I didn't, but I do.
Yes, I did.
No oak on this, correct? Just
no, there is
juicy.
oak on it. There is a little oak on it.
Okay.
So it's not your light, bright, crisp. It's a little richer, more full-bodied. And just another note on this particular wine. This is a property who has part of the Kendall Jackson family, and they own all kinds of things. So this is not going to be made anymore after the 219 or 220 vintage, because they feel the grapes are too good to be put into this price level. And so they're going to upscale these into other items at a different price point. So that's why we were able to get some of this. And I was told it's being poured for $15 a glass at the Capitol Grill at the moment. So you can decide to go there and have a glass, or you can buy a bottle.
But we do support our restaurant friends.
Yes, we do.
You know, and that's not uncommon, actually. You see that in restaurants.
No,
which,
agreed.
I have to admit, when I was a wine director of restaurants, I was a little bit more populist, but you know, nobody's going to tell you what pricing to do.
Well,
However,
Capital Grill is Capital Grill.
Capital Grille, Capital Grille. So just to touch a Evoke on that. And then this next wine, Emblem Chardonnay, you'll notice Michael Mondavi, who has his own operation independent of the Robert Mondavi winery, which was sold. And this is a very interesting thing about this wine. I'm going to actually pull up something to show you. This is from the Petaluma Gap. That is a 2-year-old, hold on, I want to go down one more. It's a 2-year-old AVA, approved viticultural area. So Rodgers Creek is a vineyard within the Petaluma Gap. And you'll forgive me, but I'm like totally, you know, addicted to these now. But this is a good way to show you how effective this is in cooling the vineyards with the breezes that are coming in directly from the Pacific. So north of San Francisco, but here is the gap, and it impacts the Sonoma coast for sure, but also it flows inland into warmer spots of the Russian River Valley and such. And you know, the breezes that are coming in are quite cold, colder than those that are impacting Carneros. And I actually have a neat website if you want to look it up. There are lots of notable wineries in this area. You may have heard of Keller Estate, lots of vineyards, but it's a relatively large area that pulls in the cold breezes from the Pacific and impacts the Russian River and the Sonoma coast. And Emblem is produced by Michael Mondavi, who, you know, started his career with his father when he co-founded the Robert Mondavi Winery in 1966. But, you know, after they sold, you know, they started Opus One, they sold both Robert Mondavi and Opus, and he started Folio Wine Partners in 2004, which with his wife, who's not pictured here, and his kids with whom he works, Rob and Dina. And he made an interesting statement when he was giving an interview recently. He said, when asked, in a family business, there are many positive but also challenges. Have you been successful at finding a balance? And he said, if historically the Mondavi family worked well from generation to generation, my father would not have left Charles Krug Winery in 1965. And he sort of said it tongue in cheek, but obviously they've done well for themselves. I'm going to taste this wine right now. I've almost forgot to do that. I don't know how many of you have it. Cheers. It's moving a little heavily in the glass, so it's got some weight and it smells spectacular. It smells, you know, like the bright citrus fruits, lemon and lime and such, but also, you know, just a little bit of vanilla and oak. This sees about, you know, a touch of new French oak. It has been barrel fermented, and it's enjoyed lees contact as well. But it's super refreshing acidity. So it combines the weight you want and expect from a notable Chardonnay, but alcohol is moderate. It's not pulling my attention, but neither does the oak pull my attention. It's lifted, and you can definitely see the impact of the growing region it comes from. So parting shot about Petaluma Gap, it tends to run 20 degrees in the middle of the summer, cooler than the Green Valley of Russian River. I don't even believe that. That's amazing. I don't know if I got that information wrong or not, but it's substantially coolest growing region in this area, with the exception of the parts of the Sonoma coast that are right up against the Pacific. Anyone want to chime in about that? If you have it, I think it's absolutely delicious. Then on the heels of that, we have the Moon Size Chardonnay, which is another premium Chardonnay, actually ultra premium Chardonnay. And when you say VLQ, what's very limited in terms of quantity about that, Denny? Versus
we have about 3 cases. This was, again, a wine intended for a restaurant that didn't take it. And we've had it for a while, and time to find a new home for it.
This Chardonnay.
Very, very eclectic little winery.
And very highly rated. You'll see Jeb Dunnett gave it 95 points, but what's interesting about it is this is from a region that is satellite to Mount Veeder in the Mayacamas range, and it's called Bald Mountain. And I wasn't familiar with this at all, but it's a couple, Marianne and Larry Tsai. I still can't find out from their website where the moon part comes from, but they created, they started producing wines in 2003 and created their label, basically employing Philip Melka, who's, you know, I think Robert Parker has canonized him as one of the 10 best winemakers in the New World, to make great American wine for them in Mayacamas. This has gone through full mallow. It's still whole cluster pressed and has seen about 50% new oak, but it gets raves from the critics. I haven't tasted it, Denny, have you?
Yeah, it's very, very good. It's just, you know, it was one of those items that was pricey at the $90 price range, which is a tough sell for Chardonnay. And when we were given the opportunity to buy it, we told them what we needed to have on it, and we were able to negotiate a price. So, yeah, it's serious Napa Chardonnay.
I'm going back to the Emblem, and I'll tell you it's absolutely delicious. So whether you decide to indulge for 22 bucks or 40, know that the oak and the Emblem sits very lightly on it. So that said, Rod, do you want to take the wheel on French and Spanish reds?
Okay, French and Spanish reds. Denny mentioned that the way the market has worked out recently, wholesalers don't want to really move too much of these wines from these areas. I apologize too. I'm outside and there's a train going. So
is that the wine train?
Yeah, it's with not our wines coming in yet. But anyway, it's gone now. First wine is Chateau Au Nadeau. It's a 2016 Bordeaux Superior and a gold medal winner. Some of you may be familiar with this wine before because it was part of a six-pack. So when we did our 2016 series year or two ago, that wine would have been in that. If some of you still have that set, you can go back through and there you'll find it. Bordeaux Superior is a pretty large area. It's mainly on the what's called the right bank of Bordeaux. So as you look down the main river, the Gironde, toward the ocean, it would be on your right. It's actually close to an area called Côte de Castillon, which I like a lot. And these wines tend to be soft, silky, and a great value. This is typical of wines from that region. It's 86% Merlot, 9% Malbec, and 5% Cabernet. I'd have to say the Malbec actually is a little unusual. And I think what's happening here is that as temperatures increase, I think you're going to see more grapes like Malbec and some of the blends out of Bordeaux, because that's a little heartier grape that's going to stand the heat a little better than, let's say, Cabernet Franc, which you're going to start seeing less in a lot of reds. I had mentioned this is a 16, so it's a great vintage. Wine's absolutely at its peak. It might be just a little angular. Sometimes Bordeaux's will go through a little angular period. All you need to do is really just decant it, let it breathe for a while. It can hold for another 2 or 3 years. So it's a delightful everyday Bordeaux. Versatile with anything, chicken, red meats, red sauces, almost just anything that, if you like a red, this is as versatile, I think, as reds typically get. Second wine is Le Dunes Tempranillo, 2018 from Valencia. So this is a red wine partner of the wine that Madeline had started with the White South with. This comes from Valencia, which is on the southeast coast of Spain. It's all Tempranillo. And typical of Tempranillo from that region, it's young, youthful, bouncy. You treat it kind of like a Beaujolais, an everyday red that's just for hamburgers, pizza. When you've got to open a lot of bottles, don't want to spend a lot, then this is that wine. Nice, delightful, charming little red. I don't have a bottle in front of me. If anybody's tried it, you can just chime on in on either of those two.
I was going to tell everyone, by all means, you can either interrupt us with a question or you can absolutely put it in the chat room. But what I'm going to do is right now share where on the website you can start putting your order. Do you mind, gentlemen, if I do this right now?
Sure.
So if you go to the events page, this is what you'll come to, right? There's Denny's garage sale. And if you didn't get the wine list here, you want to see it again, there it is. View PDF, and you can print that off. However, oops, hold on, let me screen share again. Oh, I'll get good at this when we stop doing this, right? Hold on just a minute. In any event, when you go to the events page, I have to pull it back up on my computer, hold on. And you go down to where it says purchase wines. And hold on just a minute, I'll get there. There's a fast way to get to the entire page where you can place orders. And that's what I'm coming to right now. Hold on. Okay, let me come back. All right, let's try this one more time. There I am. Okay, can you see that? Good. And purchase wines. Now, when you get this, you're going to select your store, and there's Denny's garage sale with the 4-pack that you were able to purchase for this tasting. However, this big banner, Denny's garage sale. See this, select the banner to start shopping Denny's garage sale, because the only wines on this page are the 4 for tonight's tasting. But if you click on the banner, then all of a sudden what appears is the wine list again, and then all the wines on the list. There you are. So just go to purchase wines on the events page, and then go to Denny's garage sale. And then when the big banner comes up, click on the banner itself, and then there are all the wines. Okay, Rob, that was worth interrupting you for. And since we're going to talk about the Ribera Del Tuero next, I will pull up those pictures. Okay, hold on.
I will ask or tell you that in my background is in fact the Ribera Del Duero. I'll talk a little bit about that. I noticed when I went there, it looked pretty rustic. Reminded me some parts of Southern California where you get that kind of almost a barren area. And the wines, I think, resemble that. But here we are, headed out to the Ribera del Duero.
So north central Spain, pretty mountainous region, south of Rioja, right? Because there's Logroño. And you've been here, I haven't. And there's the Douro River flowing right through it. And it becomes the Duero in Portugal. So that's what I have to offer. And there you are.
Okay, the third wine of the French-Spanish wines is, in fact, Ribera del Duero. It's a 2014 12 Linajes Reserva, which we're not looking at, but the term 12 Linajes refers to kind of like the Spanish equivalent of the round table. So Linajes is like lineage. And so we're looking at it. If you see a picture of the label, maybe I can do that right.
No, I can bring it up again.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. Hold on.
There, okay. You have 12 seals there. and they represent the 12 noble families of that region, which was done in the 12th century. So that was the Spanish version of that. Again, it was a round table, which meant everybody was equal. I imagine the people who owned the Vega Sicilia and La Pen and some of the great families of Ribera del Duero sat around that table, and that their seal is part of that. This particular, I guess this has probably been copyrighted, I'm not sure. It's a brand right now from a firm called Bodegas Gormaz. They make a lot of different wines in that region, but this is their kind of their flagship. We have that picture up there, and I get the question, well, what's the difference between Rioja, Ribera del Duero? They both use virtually all Tempranillo, but they're different wines. And I'd say if I had a picture of the Rioja behind me, you'd see a lot flatter land, you'd see more lush. The soils there are typically loam, clay, and things like that, whereas Ribera del Duero is hilly. Most of the vineyards are on hillsides. It's stark. It looks like a fairly brutal way of living, but it's responsible for some great wines. Difference here is that Ribera del Duero is because of their granite soils. You get a firmer, tougher, earthier wine than you would from Rioja.
And they have a different clone of Tempranillo too. You know,
they've always called it that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they call it that Tinto Fino.
Tinto Fino, right?
So it could be a different clone. But if you have them side by side, it's easy to pick out the Ribera because it's gonna just be a tougher wine. This is a 14 though, so it has kind of gone through that phase. I do have a glass in front of me. This has been treated like many of Riojas. It's seen 24 months in French oak, 70% of that is French oak, and then the other 30% was American oak. So when you smell the wine, you're gonna pick up the American oak just like you would in a Rioja. But it's a little spicier. I think the granite soil gives you a little bit more minerality on the nose, and on the palate you can pick up some red fruits, but there is a lift to the wine, and it's got that nice smoky background. I think it will go with the same kind of meals at a Rioja, but I think it will go for a little bit more spiciness or a stew or something a little bit more assertive. I think the minerality though will also allow it to go with game and something like pigeon or squab or something like that. So a pretty solid earthy smoky wine. I think at $15 you could do a lot worse.
Oh, seriously, it's a lot of wine for the money. I'm drinking it too, and it's balanced and it's rich. And if you try to buy some more, high-profile Ribera del Dueros, they'll literally cost you 2, 3, 4 times as much money. This is showing well right now. Thanks for picking this out, Denny. And the last one in this category, the Jean-Luc Colombo Cornas, is a different animal altogether. Rod, where are we?
Well, this is this guy that's had a fairly controversial past. Jean-Luc Colombo is the owner. It's been there since 1984. And the history of Cornas, which this wine is from, is all Syrah. It's from the Northern Rhone. But a lot of people felt Cornas was like the mean, tough, earthy street kid in the Northern Rhone. It was a tough wine, whereas Hermitage was also big and regal. And then you had Saint Joseph and Côte Rôtie, and Cornas was kind of left out because many people just did not like a wine that tough. Columbus came along and said, well, we're going to modernize this. We're going to fix this. And they came out with a softer, sleeker, more attractive Cornas. A lot of people objected to that because people are traditionalists in this area. But one way to look at this wine is that if you think of Côte Rôtie, this wine kind of resembles that. It's a little softer, a little sleeker, a little sexier wine than your typical Cornas. And this is really one of the stars of modern day Cornas. So right now, Cornas has ceased to be that kind of tough guy. You have one type that is that, and you have another type, and Colombo is right at the head of that, is the softer, sleeker style. Wine was aged 22 months in oak barrel, so that's not that's pretty typical, I think, for this sort of wine. But it was fermented in stainless steel, so that is a modern approach. You'd get violets and spices, a little bit of vanilla from the oak, but this being a star, typically you're going to see this wine at about 100 or more, so I think that's a very attractive value at this. It's a 14. It drinks relatively well, but it can last another 10 years, easy. Not a problem.
You know, it's a real heartbreak to sommeliers, aka somms, that Northern Rhone Syrah doesn't sell itself. We have to sort of hand sell it because I think it's a phenomena, flavor and fragrance wise, that we don't experience in our culture, that combination of ripe red fruit and smoked meat and white pepper. But boy, if you give them a chance, they're just spectacular.
Matt and Rod, what do you think the life or the aging potential is on the Ribera Del Duero?
It's
Being that it's already
drinking really
214.
well right now, but I think it'll hold for several
I
more
thought it
years.
was a little tough, so I probably give it another 3 years, 5 years for max, and then after that you could just let it see. I think a lot of these wines pick up a leathery, smoky aspect, and it has not gone there yet. So I think there is some improvement, some soft to be done there. It came out of the bottle a little tough today. So it being a 14, I think it behaves like a true Reserva. Also say that in any Reserva that you're going to see from Ribera Del Duero, they start out at about $50. So this actually is quite a remarkable value.
Yeah, when I tried it several weeks ago, I thought it was better the second day. But yeah, I thought it was really a real value at that price. We're real fortunate.
You know, no one pays
fall into
attention to color, and it's telling the story color-wise. Hold it on an angle against a white surface. The rim is showing rosy. It's not showing yellow. So it's telling the truth of what you're describing, Rod and Denny. It's, you know, it's a little backward. So cool. All the more reason you can buy as much as you like and you don't have to drink it in 6 months. You want to
if you went the case route, I'd say 6 months or so, and then if it hasn't changed in every year or so, so you don't have to rush right home and drink it all down.
Shall we transition to Italy?
Okay. I can kick her off here. We have the 2017 Il Poggione Rosso Toscano. I'd have to say, excuse me, down through the years, Il Poggione has probably been our favorite Brunello producer. I think all of the stores have probably sold more of that than any other Brunello. And it's always been a nice, solid Brunello. They make other wines. They make a Rosso de Montalcino, which is, again, like the Brunello, it's 100% Sangiovese. They make a Rosato, which all the stores sell. Again, from the Sangiovese, they make a Grappa. They make a Vinsanto. The whole range, everything's excellent. This one right here, Toscano Rosso, is kind of like their entry level. So they're not tied down to just Sangiovese. This is actually made from Sangiovese, Merlot, and Cabernet. So you could say it's a concession to the market, what is selling out there, what people like. So this is your nice, easygoing, but solid, spicy, earthy, a very attractive young Tuscan wine. It says Tuscan throughout, but in that region, we're seeing more Sangiovese. Well, we've always seen Sangiovese, but we're seeing more Merlot and Cabernet. And those three grapes in that region, for some reason, they play better together than any other place in the world. So very successful wine from them.
Just one mention of that, like some of the items we buy, after you get them in the store, you realize that you have accumulated the same wine, but from a couple of different vintages. So we started out with 17. We have recently begun to receive the 18. So they're both very similar. I tried them both side by side. So once the 17 we go through, we'll be morphing into the 18. But yeah, for $12, nice glass of wine.
Okay, and then we are going on to Nozzole, La Fora, the Anticlassico Reserva, but rumor has it, this has an even higher DOCG, right? Is this a Gran Selezione?
Gran Selezione. Yeah, this is a property that they don't produce every year. They only produce it in the very best of years. And it's a single vineyard in their property that is 100% Sangiovese, and the vines are a minimum of 35 years old. The property itself, the La Fora, is at an elevation of 300 meters above sea level. So you have that sort of mountainous situation with not only the steep hills, but also the high elevation. And it results in a really spectacular Chianti Classico Reserva Gran Selezione. The everything is manually harvested, which I guess is one of those challenges with mountain vineyards. You're going to spend a lot of time working on that. And then fermented on the skins and aged for 16 months in French oak, and then an additional 6 months in the bottle. And I think in this case, it goes beyond that. The wine drinks really well right now. I've had this in a couple different vintages, and it's very rich. You know, some of the things you grew up thinking about Chianti, this has no resemblance to that. This is a rich, smooth, really well-made bottle of wine. If you're looking for excellent bottle to go with your Veal Marsala coming up, or Veal Piccata, I think this would be a great wine to go along with that. This is an interesting thing. This and a couple of the other Italian wines are all from our same supplier. And he basically was getting backed up with the vintage. And so he offered us an opportunity to clean out some of these 3 or 4 months ago, and we set them aside so that we'd have an opportunity to present them during this sale. So sometimes somebody's overabundance becomes our good fortune, and I think that's what the case is with this and several of the Italian wines. You're up, Rod.
Okay, I also might add that there have been vineyards on that site for 700 years. It was bought in 71 by the Folinaris, which has been around for a long time. Folinaris have been producing wine for, I think, 400 years. So it's as classic as they get. The next wine after that is the Sette Ponti Poggio al Lupo, which comes from Maremma. This is the 2018. Sette Ponti is really one of the big stars right now in Tuscany. They're famous for a wine called Orino and Cronolo, and this is another property that they've bought from the Maremma. The Maremma is actually in the southern part of Tuscany, often called the cowboy area. And I think if we look at all of the properties of Sette Ponti, one thing stands out. With the Orino, it's right in the Chianti area, but that wine is made up of, I believe, not even Sangiovese, Petit Verdot, Cabernet, and Merlot. So there's no Sangiovese in a wine that comes right from Tuscany. The Cronolo is made up of 80% Sangiovese, and that wine has been famous for as just being a wine that could have been called Chianti, but does so much more. Now comes along the Poggio al Lupo, which is from Maremma. Maremma is an area where there's a lot of Sangiovese grown, but it's gotten quite popular for Merlot and Syrah. This is the only Cabernet I know that comes from that region, and they've done a super job. So the key to all of these is that the owners really go after something different, no matter where they are. If they're looking for not the mainstream, but something different, and they do it very, very well. I was shocked to know that this estate really is only where the owners have only owned it since 1998, and it's as famous as it is. So that means that they hit it. They knew what they were doing, and as soon as they hit the ground running, everybody knew it. And it's always been one of our most popular, what we would call super Tuscans. This is 100% Cabernet. It's been aged 18 months in new French oak, and it's got that nice, soft, sleek, sexy style that just oozes out. It has velvet tannins. It's fresh and lively. It's complex, but it really is, it knocks you out as a Cabernet.
Oh, absolutely. I got to jump in here because I love
Yeah.
this wine, Rod. I mean, I remember first tasting it when it first came out, and Poggio means Vineyard of the Wolf. And that alone is, you know, pretty sexy. But if you like Cabernet, this is a 100% Cabernet that delivers on all cylinders, but it's not, you know, it's not a truck. It's got elegance, but it's got blackcurrant, cassis, black raspberry. It's Foursquare. It's just beautiful. A lot of wine for $30. By the way, somebody had mentioned in the chat room that there was an issue with the Barolo. It was showing out of stock when they went to order it. It was just updated. You shouldn't have a problem with any other of the wines, but I'll try to keep an eye on the chat room. Everything else is in inventory and should not show sold out. So don't let that discourage you. Go ahead, Rod. Sorry to interrupt you. Where are we going now?
Well, I can't add to what you said on the Poggio, so we'll just move on to the next line. Tenuta La Fuga. I hope I said that right. That's
Perfect.
okay. 15 Brunello, 15th great year in Brunello. But we've touted that, even though 16 came along, and now people saying, well, maybe 16's better. But if you have 15 or 16, you're doing well. This is also owned by the Folinari family, the people who bought Nizzoli back in '71. This is a very small estate and pretty much a very traditional estate, and the wines have pretty much stayed the same. So even though the Folinaris own them, they pretty much let them do what they want to do there. One concession of modernization is that the wine actually, the fermentation took place in stainless steel, and then it was moved into the oak, the Slavonian oak cask, and then bottled right at the time you're supposed to bottle them. I think that's like 3 years in oak. It's earthy, smoky, has red fruits to it, quite full bodied, but the tannins are a little polished. So a lot of Brunellos nowadays are just a little easier to take than they used to be. This is one of those, but I think it's still been held in a pretty much traditional way. Price point though, that's less than mini Chiantis. So we're looking at a 15 Brunello, done excellently, and really on the young side will improve. $35. Wow, that seems close to being unbelievable.
It seems wrong.
Yeah.
Well, like Rod intimated at the beginning, I think that's one of the benefits of having the 16 vintage following the 15. And while everybody was hoopla-ing the 15 to start out with, it certainly doesn't diminish it, but they knew they had the 16, which was also getting rave reviews, coming in behind it. So this is the second time we've had a 215 that we were able to sell at half price. And Rod, what do you think? If you had a 6-pack of this, how long would you let that sit?
It's another situation where you can think about waiting for 3 years, but you know, the thing about Brunellos is because of those polished tannins, if you let the wine breathe, you can enjoy it now. You just can't. So I still think in terms of maxing out or leveling out, I'd say 3 to 5 years. And then after that, another 5, 10, 15 years. Brunellos will certainly do that. And this was handled in that kind of fashion. So this is not a simple wine by any stretch. It's as I said, a classic old school Brunello, but just been tweaked a little bit to modernity.
Okay. It's in a nice, neat little 6-pack to stick in your cellar.
I'm going to nudge us on to the Barolo. And Rod, I know you and Denny probably have something to say about it, but I just want to talk about the wine for a moment because I'm drinking it. I'm lucky enough to have it in my glass. And if you have it, If you look at it against a white surface, it's a teaching example of what Nebbiolo, the grape it's made out of, does. The very center is true ruby red, and as you move your finger off to the very rim, you see 2, 3, 4 bands of color, and the very rim is yellow, almost orange. So Nebbiolo has this maddening, actually perverse habit of making it look as if it's much older than it is. Sangiovese can do this too, but when you smell and taste this wine, aromatically, I have to tell you, it's right on the money. What's the conventional wisdom for Barolo and Barbaresco, Tara and Roses, where you get like a floral, fruity character, and then you get this deep, earthy character, and this has got it. And on the palate, the weight is like a rich Pinot Noir, but then the tannins kick in. They're not murderous. Sometimes, you know, Barolo can be really evil, but this is showing open, welcoming, and it's just waiting for a lamb chop to resolve its tannins. And here we are in northwestern Italy. I wanted to show you this because here are the French Alps. So it's, you pull out, I'm going to play that, there we go. We're going to play it one more time so you can see it. So it's northwestern Italy that's rimmed by the French Alps. And it's the growing region where Nebbiolo really does its thing better than, a lot better than anywhere else on the planet. I don't think anyone can argue with that, but this is showing like an angel. It's showing balance, forward, true to the grape variety. It's not heroic, but it's lovely.
And it's $20 Barolo.
And it's $20. And I did check, Trav, we had a little issue online with it. Travis checked on it, and it should be showing fine. Here we are in the Piedmont. Here we are in the township of Barolo, that's significantly larger than the township of Barbaresco. And anyone, you guys want to chime in anything else about this wine?
Well, I would just say the story on this wine again is it's an item that was ordered by a large chain, and they ended up with 15, 18 extra cases that have been sitting in a warehouse, and we were able to get it and sell it for that kind of price. And you know, it's that's one of the buys of the evening, if you like Barolo.
We have significant amounts of this. It doesn't have an L2
No,
or a
we got
VL2.
10, 12 cases now.
Okay. It's true. It finishes dry, but not mean. If you want, don't mind taking my word for it, it's drinking well. Both those last two wines are drinking just great. All right, we are at about 7:25. Nobody minds if we tiptoe through the tulips on the New World Reds, but we should go for it, I think.
All right, I'll make it quickly as people savor their Barolo. The first of the items that we've got for the New World is the 217 Mark West Pinot Noir from the Santa Lucia Highlands. Mark West is one of those older names from Sonoma originally, and was one of the early Pinot Noir specialists before Pinot Noirs were as popular as they became. I can remember in a different lifetime selling Mark West Pinot with a California appellation for $7 or $8, and wasn't particularly distinguished. But as things went along, people learned how to deal with Pinot, and you couldn't just grow it anywhere. This is a single area, the Santa Lucia Highlands, which is one of my favorite areas for California Pinot. And it's just drinks really well right now. Mark West is no longer in existence. It's owned by Gallo. This is a separate entity, but with their money and their know-how, they've been able to produce a series of single appellation Pinots, and this is one of them. And there were 6 or 8 extra cases of the 17 that they wanted to move through, and that's how we ended up with it. It drinks really well, medium bodied, ready to enjoy at this point. Very nice, pleasant, typical Santa Lucia Highlands Pinot in that price range. Again, there's not a lot of it. We thought there was, but then again, surprises.
Where are we? We're just southeast of Monterey, correct?
Right.
Just to put it in the
Yep.
frame of reference. If you're at Monterey Bay and you go south and slightly inland, there's a coastal range that protects it, but all the breezes come down from Monterey Bay. But like you said, it is the hot region, hot meaning hip for Pinot Noir right now.
So it's the one item that we've had all night long, as we went through, that we have very little of, is this little Cabernet Franc from Mendoza. The producer is one who is well known for the traditional grapes of the area, and this was a new cuvee that he started not long ago. I'm looking for my notes here. So this is a Cabernet Franc, a number of Cabernet Francs from a couple of different regions in Mendoza, and they're all finished off in French and American barrels for a minimum of 6 to 8 months, which seems like a lot of work for a wine in that price range.
Rod, you were enthusiastic about Franc when you came back from your South American trip. I remember you talking about it.
I think that's still an undiscovered giant for Argentina. Some of the best Cabernet Francs in the world are coming from that region. And since they make their money with Malbec, they don't price it higher or anything like that, but they give it the same care. It's like no other, and I'm sure this is of that, where you get a little bit of chocolate there, but you get some nice raspberry fruits to them. Nice balance. It's not California and it's not Europe. It's just their own style. And if you think about Malbec and twisting that toward the Cabernet Franc, the differences there are those raspberry fruits that come along with the Cabernet Franc. Dazzling wines. They way over deliver. Everybody does. And I'm always amazed at how much effort they put into that wine, but they don't popularize it as much as they ought to.
Yeah, sort of like their insider's wine, but there seems to be more and more of it, and I think it's going to get more and more commercial, and unfortunately that'll raise the price. So this is one that's in short supply. The next item is another item that we don't have a lot of, and it was just a individual friend in the wholesale business that had 3.5 cases of these magnums that he didn't want anymore because he had 2 other vintages and they weren't selling because the restaurants were closed. They like to use those as trophy bottles at the restaurant. And Duckhorn, when you say Duckhorn, that's probably the one property that's synonymous with Merlot in California. You know, in many other situations, the Merlot starts out either as a blending grape or as an also ran, but not with Duckhorn. 214 is a very nice vintage. This has a nice review, and it's a blend of 88% Merlot, 7% Cabernet, and a little bit of Petit Verdot and Cab Franc. It's aged in 100% French oak, 40% of it new, and 60% of it neutral oak. So they don't overdo it. This is a really nice bottle that would be a great wine to have if you've got a fall or winter dinner coming up, where you could buy a magnum of a really well-known, well thought of properties Merlot for a particular kind of a meal. At my house, it would be a meal for 2. But this is interesting. I was on the website and they showed this as now being sold out for $68 at the winery, but it's a standard size. So here,
so the 750 is
$68 at the winery. So this is one that we have $70 for a Duckhorn Magnum of 214 Merlot. Again, limited quantities. And then we've got a couple of wines that have some interesting history. Arrowwood Proprietary Red Blend. This is a restaurant-only wine. It's also produced, the same wine is produced for retail, but with a different name on it. And again, this is one of those casualties of the closed restaurants. And we were able to get some of Arrowwood's stuff. He's an interesting Personally, when I started in the wine business, and that's years and years ago, Dick Arrowwood was the chief winemaker at Chateau St. Jean. And in many ways, his claim to fame were making all kinds of exotic Rieslings. And over time became a legendary red winemaker, left St. Jean and developed his own property up in the mountains in Sonoma, Knights Valley. He makes right now, the majority of his wines are red, and they're all different Sonoma appellations. And this particular one is a blend of 73% Cabernet, 13% Merlot, and 12% Malbec. And it's a very pretty wine. This stuff is tends to be a little edgy and needs some time. The 14s are drinking really well right now. This had a time to sit. We only have a few cases of this. It's been selling regularly, but it's time to do what we do and move the stuff out. So that's an interesting bottle to consider. And I'm going to skip the two Max wines, and we'll do those last. I want to talk a little bit about Angelo Cellars.
Oh, okay, then I will.
Well, if you want to break into the, if they want to taste it or whatever, but I figured I'd let you talk
No,
about.
go for it.
All right, so
I'll bring up the wine list again. No
all right, so
problem.
Angelo Cellars. This guy Chris Angelo in 2005 is a retired Boeing engineer and apparently had too much money. And he started a very small project in Napa. And his main source of his production, which probably was around 500 cases a year, of two Cabernets, one of them from the Stagecoach Vineyard. So the 214 Stagecoach Vineyard wine was only ever imported or brought into a state in one state, and that was Michigan. And that was because he had some type of relationship with the Grand Hotel in Mackinac. So basically, this is where they sold it. It sat now in the warehouse after they had sold some initial wine for a couple of years, and then it was no longer available. Since then, he's basically closed up, and I don't see anything on his website any longer. And to go along with that, part of the reason probably was because Stagecoach Vineyard was bought by Gallo, and now they cut off his contract with that. So a lot of places are now that Stagecoach, which has always been a very, very impressive and important property up in the Atlas Peak area for Cabernet, is no longer available. The wine drinks beautifully. It's not a, it's a good sized wine, but it's very mild, forward. It's, I've got the numbers here. Yeah, it's 100% Cabernet, and it's got it's an approachable but lush Cabernet, good acidity, and approachable now. It's a truly unique bottle of wine that now has become, just in the short time that we owned it, it's no longer being made, and the vineyard that the wine was sourced from is no longer available to some of these small producers. Gallo will probably introduce its own line of stuff and use its wines in those situations. So again,
it's hard to believe that a company could buy the Stagecoach Vineyard.
Yeah. That's like saying I'm going to buy Birmingham.
Right, right.
We have like 3 cases of it. It's a really impressive looking bottle, and it really drinks nicely right now. There's just a little bit of it, but it was something I would say would be a nice bottle for the holidays. And then we go to Big Max.
This you can't get better than this. First of all, it's a bear, right? This is a winery that's located in Napa, Denny. But this cab, they're sourcing grapes from the Central Coast.
Yeah, I think maybe 4 or 5 garage sales ago we did some Maxville wines. So they have, like many wineries, they have an initial Napa property where they have higher priced vineyard estate bottle stuff, and then to supplement their income, they will go out and source grapes and then have a second tier of wine. So the Big Max wines, there's 3 of them, And they are the second wines or the second production stuff from Maxville. And we have two. And Madeline, you got one open?
I do, and I wanted to show everyone real quick again, you know, when we talk about California, the Central Coast is a large area. The North Central Coast includes the, what we start at the tail end of the Santa Cruz Mountains, Monterey, San Luis Obispo, go down to Santa Barbara. It's a relatively large area, so they can source grapes from a large swath of land. And I thought I would show you this because this is San Francisco Bay, so Napa and Sonoma are up there. They're the Santa Cruz Mountains, and Denny had talked about Santa Lucia Highlands, which are, here's Monterey, Santa Lucia Highlands.
Yeah, it's right around
And
there.
down here, San Luis Obispo, and then Santa Barbara. So it's this is referred to as the South Central Coast. But I'm tasting this Cabernet and it's making me giggle because, oops, what did I do? Zoom meetings is not responding. Hold on. Hopefully you haven't lost me. Can you still hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
No, we can't.
Yeah, right now, but you can't see anything?
No, you're frozen, but we can hear you.
But you can hear me, then I'm gonna just keep talking. The wine is actually very, here we go. It's pretty, it smells a little floral and fruity, but on the palate, it is absolutely Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, 100% Cabernet.
Mm-hmm. It's rich, it's lush, and it's delicious. And what are we?
$15.
It's a lot of wine for the money. Now, tell us about the Big Mac's Red Blend.
So the Red Blend is the second of their three wines that they produce. And this is a blend of Zinfandel, Cabernet, and Syrah, Petit Syrah. And this is not quite as discreet as the Cabernet may be. This is a pretty big wine. And when I tasted it, I thought what really needed to have with that was something I've tried to not eat as much of lately, and that would be a slab of ribs. And this would be a great rib wine. So it's big, rich, jammy, nothing subtle about it. Very, very tasty, and a wine that you would have with a rich dish of some sort. It's 50% Zin, 33% Cab, and the balance Petit Syrah. And these are all three different grape varietals that are fermented separately and then blended together and then aged for 12 months in new and used French oak in a bottle, and then aged for an additional 6 months after that in the bottle. So it's a big, rich wine that I think will appeal to those people looking for something very California-ish and very rich for that right dish. Or if you just want a mouthful of wine, again, well priced.
Well, we made it. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm having issues with my computer. Is my voice coming through?
Your voice is there.
Yes.
Great. I wanted to share the screen on one other item, but we made it through everything, and we're only running 10 minutes behind. Yay. Gentlemen, you want to remind everyone of the core issues with the garage sale, like when it runs through what day and when will they be able to pick their wines up?
Well, we've tried to set it up so we can fill orders because there may be some wines that have to move around. So you put your orders up and they'll be available the first of the week. Pretty much the same as we've done for some of our other in-store tastings in the past. So in most cases, you'll be able to find some of the wines in the store if you need to physically look at them. We would strongly suggest that you order them online. As we found out tonight, if it was out of stock, which unfortunately it wasn't, we should be able to let you know that and you could move to a different situation. But I think for the most part, other than a few wines, we should be able to take care of most everybody's needs.
And we're going to call or text people when their order's
They'll
ready
be
for
called.
pickup?
Yep, that'll be done. And the wines will be set aside. You just come in, you'll have a copy of your receipt, put it in your buggy, and we'll take it out to your car. We look forward to hearing from you, seeing you, and you enjoying some of these wines that we feel very fortunate to have been able to offer.
I'd also like to ask that Madeline's been working feverishly in the background on this glitch with the Barolo. And so she and Travis, our e-com guy, believe they've worked it out. So I just saw a slew of messages go back and forth. I trust that. I would urge that if you like that wine, tonight's tonight to buy it, not tomorrow. And maybe not even 2 or 3 hours from now, but I think everything else should be running pretty smoothly. Madeline has made me the host because she's had a glitch in her all of the the electronics out there. So I just want to thank everybody for coming. This has been a tremendous turnout. We can stay on for a few minutes and clear up any questions anybody might ask or clarify.
Rod, mention the next Zoom meeting.
The next Zoom meeting is, now I'm not going to be able to show you that. That's on August 13th. It is, and I'm going to be talking from memory, Lambrusco's, but Lambrusco has turned the corner. Back, it used to be Riuniti, now it's anything but that, and the producer is very serious. And no, there we are. So we can at least see that. This is the Paltrinieri's. They make what's now typical of Lambrusco, a dry Lambrusco.
I remember Riuniti.
A rosé still that's on your left. In the middle, you see a sparkling Lambrusco. Again, it's brut, and at the end is a nice, refreshing red Lambrusco. But you can chill that and serve that. So all these will be chilled. The owners will be there. This is August the 13th at 4 p.m. and that's to account for the change in time because they're in Romagna and not in this country. So I think that's going to be a super time for us. And it'll be early enough in the day. These are low alcohol wines, so I think you can enjoy them all and throughout the evening. In this time of the year, these wines are a needed must because they're so refreshing, so tender, and you'll be surprised how serious they are.
Rod, you've got a future in the wine business. Can you hear me? Because you're positively poetic when you talk about these wines. And look at the price points, everyone. I'm really excited about this because these are really sophisticated wines. You'll notice we don't often do this, but I made a recommendation that you beeline to some munchies from Emilia-Romagna, notably Parmigiano Reggiano, prosciutto, and balsamico, and throw in some olives and some crusty bread because this stuff is made to be consumed with food, but it's really an exciting tasting.
And I would suggest that people forget everything they thought they knew about Lambrusco and just start over again. This is a whole new revelation.
Rod, you're my hero for taking up the Lambrusco banner while I was lost in cyberspace, right? I'm going to send a follow-up email with Rod, and Denny's email address is visible if you want to communicate with them directly. Can they buy the wines from the garage sale in the stores? Denny, you want to talk about that real quick? A chunk of them are available at West Bloomfield, right? But
I would say the largest selection of them will be at West Bloomfield and then Ann Arbor West. But people can continue to walk in whether they know about this sale or not and buy the wines off the shelf. The reason I suggest that one of the reasons would be to buy it online is that you can guarantee that the item, if it's in stock, which it should be, you can get.
And I know in some cases that where the wines are in short supply, the stores are actually not necessarily putting those wines out because they want to protect the online orders. So again, it's to your advantage to order online.
any questions, any comments, anyone? I've been going back and forth between all the wines that we tasted tonight, and the Chardonnay is still drinking like an angel. And as a white Burgundy freak, I don't often say that. So let's hear it to Michael Mondavi and his kids. And really the wine to me of the night is that Ribera Del Duero rod. It's showing like a lot of wine. I think it's a reflection of the terrain behind you.
And it'll be better tomorrow.
And it'll be better tomorrow.
That's my favorite too.
Thanks everyone for your company. As always, you were restrained and elegant this evening. No one wants to unmute and speak up? Any faves? That's okay. We'll let you be restrained and elegant, and hopefully you'll tell us what you think about the dry Lambruscos when you come on with our Italian friends from Emilia Romagna in a couple of weeks. Denny and Rod, you are princes. I'm privileged to work with you.
Thank you, folks, for joining.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Have a great evening and a great weekend.
Thanks so much. You too. This was great. This was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.